Una palabra no dice nada y al mismo tiempo lo esconde todo, igual que el viento que esconde el agua, como las flores que esconden el lodo. Una mirada no dice nada.
Worldwide, over 35 million people live infected with human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. This virus targets your immune system and increases your susceptibility to opportunistic infections. In Florida, the problem is especially bad. About 593 people out of every 100,000 live infected. Those at the largest risk include homosexual men and African Americans. And in Florida, the prevalence of this disease shows no signs of stopping.
Y al mismo tiempo lo dice todo, como la lluvia sobre tu cara o el viejo mapa de algún tesoro.
Okay, well, I feel that HIV is very prevalent here, at least mostly in South Florida. One, because I know that HIV attacks, or it's not that it attacks, but it's more prevalent in the minorities, and I know that Miami in general is known or houses a lot of different minorities, and since sometimes minorities don't have the same amount of education as other individuals do in different social classes, they do sort of know the precautions they should be taking when it comes down to preventing HIVs, but they just fear that, it's not going to happen to me. So since they feel that it's not going to happen to them, they shouldn't protect themselves, and like people that are a little more educated know that it could just pretty much could happen to anyone.
My name is Ashley. I'm 21 years old. I'm a student at FIU. I'm a biology major and I am HIV negative. I have taken courses that have gone over HIV in general, not specific. I know that it's definitely growing, especially in the gay community. Right now, I'm not sure, but it's in the millions. Definitely in the millions. A lot of people are getting this disease. I know it's a immune system deficiency disease, and it's usually the result is death, so it's a really sad disease.
Okay. Well, I think AIDS is a sexually transmitted disease that can be transmitted either via in the blood or either by actual sexual activity. It's a virus.
HIV is a causative agent of AIDS, right? HIV is a retrovirus, and what happens is HIV destroys the immune system, and as a result, the infected individual will develop a series of various infections that are actually what we call opportunistic infections, and then eventually they will succumb to the infection and die. So basically, HIV doesn't really kill you, but the simple cold can kill you, or strep, or something, a disease that normally you can combat if you were healthy, you would die from.
Si un día me faltas, no seré nada, y al mismo tiempo lo seré todo, porque en tus ojos están mis alas y está la orilla donde me ahogo.
That was.
I'm pretty sure it was in the 80s, definitely in the 80s. That's when the whole gay population just exploded. There was drugs involved, the whole New York crazy lifestyle. I'm pretty sure that's where it all began.
Bueno, con respecto a mi relación con el VIH y SIDA, yo fui por aproximadamente 14 años la dentista del Sanatorio de Santiago de Las Vegas en Cuba, que se suponía estaban todos los pacientes ahí, es decir, todas las personas seropositivas, tanto seropositivos como enfermos. fue aproximadamente, bueno, fue desde el año 1988 hasta el 2002. Yo era la única prácticamente que atendía, habían especialistas que los atendían. Ya cuando era una cosa más específica, cuando había que operarlo o algo así. Pero bueno, la atención básica desde el punto de vista de la boca la hacía yo. En esos momentos era difícil porque inclusive cuando yo en los periodos míos de vacaciones, no todos los profesionales ni estaban preparados para eso, ni eran todos los que querían ir allí a atenderlos a ellos. Mi relación con ellos fue muy buena, inclusive hoy en día mantengo muy buenas relaciones con ex pacientes de ahí. Somos muy buenos amigos.
Well, I think the HIV and AIDS topic in general, it's being overlooked by society. And well, my opinion maybe is influenced by my background. So I come from a country where there's a lot of emphasis on prevention of disease in general, as opposed to what I think is the norm here, that a reactive approach it's taken instead of a proactive approach, as it is in my country. I come from Cuba. To treat disease and health issues in general.
On June 5th, 1981, an article was published by the CDC. It described 5 sexually active homosexual men living in Los Angeles, California. These men suffered from pneumocystis pneumonia, and this article marked the unofficial beginning of the AIDS epidemic in the US.
So AIDS is actually a syndrome because what happens is HIV destroys the acquired immune response, right? So AIDS stands for acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So what that actually means is that you don't really have an acquired immune response. So you cannot fight an infection using the secondary immune response. So what happens, again, things that you're normally able to combat because you're lacking the acquired immunity, you're not able to do anymore. So you're not able to recognize pathogens and target them, and then the immune response is actually only functioning on one arm. So what happens is HIV destroys the acquired immune response. So you can fight off some infections initially, but there's a certain point that the innate immune system is not enough to handle. So it goes into the acquired immune response. And what happens is the body can't control it, so the affected individual will actually succumb to simple illnesses. You get thrush in your mouth. You get some cancers develop as well. So yeah, HIV and AIDS, they are different because one causes the other. You can't have AIDS without HIV, okay? Okay. But you can have HIV and not necessarily
It's
have
definitely
AIDS.
not just by being next to someone that you're gonna get HIV. But I know for a fact it has to do with your bodily fluids, and it's not just. I think it's more difficult than just like when you're having sex. Like I think it's more. You could, because I remember seeing a show that this girl, she had sex with a guy who had HIV and she didn't contract it. So I think it's more difficult. It's more complex than just basically like having sex with someone or your bodily fluids combining or touching, or you know what I mean. But blood, I think definitely, like if you're getting tattooed by a needle that has blood previously from someone who did have HIV, I think for sure you would definitely get HIV because it's going through your blood system and it's going to go throughout your whole body.
So there are actually, HIV is what's called a blood-borne pathogen, right? So basically, it passes through infected fluid, primarily through the blood, sexual, right? So what can occur is HIV kind of enters through the mucosal membrane. So oftentimes it's transferred during sex, both heterosexual sex and homosexual sex. When it was first discovered back in the 80s, it was actually part of what's called this whole 3H group: homosexual males, hemophiliacs, and Haitians. Why Haitians? I'm not quite sure exactly why. It may have just been a fluke, but the first individual to be found with HIV was a Haitian male back in the 80s, okay? Now, hemophiliacs get infected because they may have contaminated blood. Back in the 80s and 90s, they didn't always test the blood. And of course, homosexual males are infected primarily because of anal sex, ripping and tearing of the membranes, and then HIV can passage that way. You can get HIV sexually, you can get it through contaminated blood, and lastly, you can get it through injection drug use, where you're using like a shared dirty needle, and you happen to inject yourself with the contaminated blood. And of course, there is what we call vertical transfer from mother to child, where an infected mother who has HIV passes the virus through the
Con respecto
placenta.
a las manifestaciones bucales, a las enfermedades que más frecuentes se veían en aquellos momentos. Y te digo en aquellos momentos porque sé que en la actualidad, con los tratamientos nuevos, quizás la incidencia no sea la misma. Pero bueno, lo que más yo veía en aquellos momentos era el sarcoma de Kaposi, el herpes ulcerativo bucal, la mucosa bucal. Se veía mucho la candidiasis bucal, la leucoplasia pilosa. La leucoplasia pilosa es una lesión que, por estudios que hicimos, era un signo predictivo como que el seropositivo en un periodo quizás de 8 meses, 7 meses, podía ser una manifestación ya que lo clasificara como un paciente de SIDA. Con respecto a los tratamientos, es decir, la diferencia en cuanto a la respuesta del tratamiento estaba basada en si el paciente era un seropositivo o era un enfermo. Es decir, en seropositivo, asintomático, estas lesiones como que la evolución, la cura era más rápida, respondía mejor a los tratamientos. Ya un paciente con el síndrome como tal, enfermo, era un poco difícil la respuesta al tratamiento. Okay. Bueno, actualmente no tengo ningún tipo de relación con esta enfermedad ni con pacientes que tienen esta enfermedad, pero sí sé por ex pacientes míos, profesionales y no profesionales, que ya la frecuencia con que se ven estas enfermedades ya no es la misma debido a los tratamientos tan avanzados que hay en la actualidad, medicamentos inclusive combinados, y entonces ya no es la misma. Yo en estos momentos tengo un trabajo que no tiene nada que ver con VIH y SIDA.
But I'm actually assistant professor here in the immunology department, and one of my goals here is to study HIV neuropathogenesis. Hopefully you say that clearly without my braces sounding crazy. So I'm looking at the effects of how HIV impacts the brain. We're trying to develop ways to prevent this pathology. So our nano group is actually not here now because we're a little late in lab, but part of my work is going to use nanoparticles to possibly combat the pathology that we're seeing in the brain. So my other colleagues are looking at ways to deliver the drugs using nanoparticles.
A lot of people do know about it. The awareness is raising every single day. You see there's a bunch of shows on TV of HIV awareness. There's the little banners, the little red little banner things. There's everywhere. Like everyone is aware of the HIV. Would I take time out of my life to raise it? Probably not. It does make me sound like a horrible person, but just to be realistic, I probably wouldn't. A lot of people wouldn't. I think the people that would be those who are affected by it, within their family, someone they love in general, or if they actually do have.
I don't think that HIV is being raised as much as it was before. in political issues. It's been an ongoing issue for so many decades already that I don't think that they feel the need to show or show its importance in society now. I feel like since there's so many organizations now that are funding research for HIV, that politics doesn't feel that it's their role anymore to bring awareness to HIV, since everyone does know what HIV is, and I feel like they've pretty much accomplished their goal of making it aware in society. I feel that in order to bring this issue to politics, I'll gather a group of people, probably people that feel that HIV is close, that it's an issue that's close to them. Just wouldn't obviously take any random person, and probably try to raise some money, some funds, to support an actual, maybe a presidential candidate or anyone, and then just try to support them, and then through them get our point across, our voice across.
Bueno, las medidas preventivas que te puedo recomendar, que se conocían y que me imagino que en la actualidad para mí son las mismas, es mucha educación, que todo el mundo, toda la población conozca de cómo se transmite el virus. Para mí es decir, yo sé que hay medicamentos que son preventivos de esta enfermedad, de este virus, pero el uso de preservativos para mí es una cosa muy importante. Pienso que es una de las cosas más importantes para prevenir. El no compartir agujas contaminadas en el caso de las personas que cogen drogas y esas cosas. Pero sobre todas las cosas, te repito, para mí lo más importante es la educación con respecto a la transmisión del VIH.
So to be honest, we're never safe, right? You should always try to be as careful as possible. The best way is going to be abstinence, which is, okay, if that's not possible, then the other way is going to be using condoms, male and female condoms. Microbicides sometimes can work. They combine them. But in terms of your regular average individual on the street, the best way to prevent it would be to use condoms at all times, and of course not to do drugs. So prevention is always key. So again, if you try to abstain from unprotected sex, always have protected sex. And you would try to, of course, ensure or somehow find out if your blood source is always clean. And don't share needles.
No dice nada y al mismo tiempo lo esconde todo, como una hoguera que no se apaga, como una piedra que nace polvo.
Now you know all the facts. What's your excuse?
What the hell is going on? The dust has only just begun to fall. Crop circles in the carpet, sinking.